This episode of the Herd Podcast supported by Stamps.com, where you can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, using your own computer and printer. For a 4-week trial and a special $110 bonus offer, just go to Stamps.com, click on the mic, enter the promo code Colin.
Hi, it's the Herd. SeatGeek is always the first place you should go to look for tickets to a game or concert. They search multiple ticket sites, ensuring that you get the best possible deal. That's SeatGeek. They do all the work, save you time and money. To get a $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code. And that promo code will be HERD. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code HERD today.
This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy, what a trooper, joining me today.
I'm good. I you know what? We were talking about those like weird shots that you like to take of the vitamins.
Yeah.
I did that this morning. They're disgusting. But I'll be good. You look nice today.
Going casual today.
I like it.
Going hip today.
Mm-hmm.
As hip as I can get. So UFC 205 is in New York City. Because of my schedule, I couldn't make it out there. Couldn't make it out there. But I'm sure I'll go to a UFC card someday in New York. Already been to one in L.A. and Vegas. We'll get to that in just 1 second. It's going to be massive. It's going to be the biggest thing that's happened in Madison Square Garden. Sorry, hockey guy. In 20 years. It's going to be the biggest thing in 20 years. Let me just even start with this. I don't think people realize it. We just had a bunch of elites not pay attention to regular people, a little arrogant. For those of you who don't get UFC, these will be the highest priced tickets and the most coveted tickets in New York City for a sporting event inside that building in 20 years. It's a world-famous sporting event venue. You can tell when something is really powerful by what it does to its opponents. UFC's killed boxing. I mean, boxing's done. They can't create new stars. They're still hanging on to Manny Pacquiao. Look at wrestling right now. Seriously, it's pathetic. Undertaker, what is he, 60? Is Ric Flair fighting this weekend? John Cena's your only star, and he rarely fights. You can tell the quality of a business by what it does to its competitors. And if you put wrestling, theatric, fake, UFC, theatric, real, boxing, real, look what UFC's done to him. Conor McGregor, I said this when he fought Nate Diaz. It was Ali Frazier. Now, it was different, but it was Ali Frazier. 5 guys in my room, all different ages, watching that fight, couldn't leave. Could not leave. I mean, look what's happened to boxing since UFC arrived. UFC has made boxing look dull and slow and inactive. And look what UFC has done to wrestling since UFC's really arrived. It's made it look less authentic, sad, desperate. The Undertaker, Triple H, Sting, Goldberg. God, do better. I mean, listen, you've always been a bunch of booger-eating phonies. I mean, it's fake wrestling. But now look at wrestling. You can't create any young stars. You don't have the UFC's energy. You don't have their momentum. You've never had their authenticity. Wrestling now, we always knew it was fake. You can't even create stars anymore. I mean, you're like Paul McCartney at the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, we've run out of people. So Eddie Alvarez fights Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor is little Bruno Mars, little Charles Barkley, little A-Rod, little Ali, a lot of stuff. I mean, he's just going a million miles an hour. He'll join us over the phone today in about 30 minutes. He takes on Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie Alvarez and Conor McGregor are going to have a weigh-in, and it's going to get incredibly ugly. But when you watch this business, whether you like it or not, and you can arrogantly look past it and feel like we're number one, wrestling and boxing, look at what UFC has done to both. Boxing's like inactive. Wrestling's like cornier and more desperate than ever. Here's Eddie Alvarez talking about the fight with Conor McGregor. Reger. Oh God, it's gonna be unbelievable.
He's the least intimidating man I ever met. I never been face to face with a man and my heart rate has not gone up or something I felt inside emotionally. That's never happened to me until I was on stage at the press conference at Madison Square Garden, where I literally felt nothing and I felt the least threatened in my life.
So that is Saturday. I want to shift gears and talk about something called scarcity. Not much of. There is a scarcity of great, and it's all over the world. And I didn't realize this when I was, in my 20s. But as I've worked for a long time, one of the things I've realized, not a lot of great. Think about that Super Bowl halftime show I was just talking about. Now think about that. All the musicians in the world. There must be 100,000 people doing a solo act. There must be 10,000 bands. And at every time you get to a Super Bowl halftime show, the producers of that show get down to the same people. Is Bruno Mars available? Is Beyonce available? Is Lady Gaga available? All the solo acts, all the bands in the world. Okay, Lady Gaga did the anthem. Okay, let's ask her to do the halftime show. They've run out of people. Good God, didn't they wheel out Mick Jagger a few years ago? Scarcity of great. There's not much great. So I saw this report this morning. NFL teams preparing mega offers for Jim Harbaugh. According to Mike Freeman, Bleacher Report, several NFL teams are preparing to make mega offers to Jim Harbaugh. This is going to be $10 million, $15 million a year. Why? The scarcity of great. Listen, there's pretty much, you can either be a great coach, you can either be a very good coach, or you can be a good coach. And sometimes I think we don't realize how hard it is to even be the second and the third level. Okay, let's say great is 1% of coaches. Nick Saban, he's great. Bill Belichick, Harbaugh, they're great coaches. I would say there's maybe, if you look at college and pro football, 10 to 15% of very, very good coaches. David Shaw at Stanford, Bruce Arians, Arizona, John Harbaugh at Baltimore, Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State, having a down year, but a very good coach. And then you get to good. Maybe 20%, 25%. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but I think I'm not. Marvin Lewis, Cincinnati Bengals. Jason Garrett, Dallas Cowboys. Mark Richt at Georgia. Les Miles, a good coach. I mean, Les Miles did win 77% of his games. That's a pretty good coach. Everybody is seeking great. Folks, there's not even that much very good. Ask a law firm looking for another great attorney. Ask a hospital looking for another great surgeon. Ask an accounting department looking for the next great accountant. Forget great. Jim Harbaugh's great. There's almost no great. Super Bowl halftime shows. In the whole world of music, they come down to the same 4 acts every year. Somebody get Bruno Mars on the phone. Oh, he's booked. That's because he's always booked. Okay? I saw a story yesterday. Stuart Mandel, Fox Sports. He was defending Brian Kelly of Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans are unrealistic. Notre Dame fans are completely unrealistic. Brian Kelly's a bum. And Stuart Mandel said, before this year started, he'd won 71% of his games at Notre Dame. He'd had 2 double-digit winning seasons. And do you know the most wins of all current active FBS coaches? Brian Kelly's got 30 more than Nick Saban. Do you realize that? Of the most career wins of the active FBS head coaches, Brian Kelly easily in front over Nick Saban. Folks, look at not just who ran for president, the nominees in both parties. It's not lowering your standard to seek good and support them. It's realizing the standard. Everybody's seeking great. Hire good. Hire good, support them, and hopefully elevate them to very good because of the operational support. Good and very good is hard to find. Jason Garrett for Dallas. That's a good coach. They draft an offensive line. They get him 2 good quarterbacks. They hire a better defensive coordinator. And now good Jason Garrett, 7-1, very good. Even that's hard. When San Francisco ran Jim Harbaugh out, you and I looked at each other. Are you out of your mind? San Francisco ran Jim Harbaugh out of town. There may be 6 great football coaches in North America. The best guy in Canada, Mark Trestman's come down here, can't keep a job. And Canada's a fine country with good football and terrific maple syrup. Had one great coach, came down here, couldn't win, can't keep a job. And forget great, good and very good is hard to find. So when I hear Notre Dame fans complaining about Brian Kelly, are you out of your mind? Are you on crazy pills? Forget great. You're not going to hire great. The great guys are hired. They're Bruno Mars. They've always got gigs. Nick's got a gig. Belichick, Urban, Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean Payton. They're not taking that job. What you've got is a good to a very good coach. Give him support. Get a few players into school right now you won't allow, and take that good to very good coach up 5%. Good God. I mean, people are out of their gourd. Be patient. Finding good is a real thing. Jason Garrett's a good coach. Cowboy fans wanted to run him out for years. Well, you finally got an offensive line. You found a little Dak. You got a little lucky. Got the right defensive coordinator. Oh. Looks like you're the best or second best team in the league. Little patience. Take a deep breath. But for the record, once you get the great coach like Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban, you got to fight off people. It's like dating the hottest girl in the room. Good God. Got to fight them off. Fish.
Makes you like them more, though.
Oh, I guess. Eric Mangini was talking yesterday on our show. He worked with Jim Harbaugh. Everybody, we got to get Harbaugh. We got to get Harbaugh. You're not going to get Harbaugh. There are very few people in the world like Harbaugh. Eric Mangini was on our show yesterday. He said, I've been around football 30 years. I've never met anybody like him.
So many coaches I've been around have talked about, I love football or the love of the game. He is the extreme of that. He's the guy that when we'd come back during training camp, couldn't sleep the night before because he was so excited to get back to work. Like a young, like a childlike enthusiasm for the game. And then it's so sincere, it resonates with the players.
Yeah, he's just a unique dude. Conor McGregor's around the corner, and I've got my shirt unbuttoned. It is a crazy, crazy Thursday. You do whatever it takes to make sure your business runs efficiently, but constant trips to the post office, let's be honest, they get in your way. That's why many people use Stamps.com. You'll be able to spend less time at the post office and more time, growing your business. Stamps.com makes mailing and shipping easy, always has. You can buy and print official U.S. postage, any letter, any package, using your own computer and printer. Stamps.com does all the thinking for you. You'll get exact postage using their digital scale. Plus, Stamps.com will help you choose the best class of mail based on your needs. Join over 600,000 businesses that currently use Stamps.com and never go to the post office again. Seriously, people still go there? Sign up at Stamps.com. Use my first name, Colin, for this special offer. A 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com. Before you do anything else, click on the mic top of the homepage, type in Colin. Stamps.com, enter Colin. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez, Saturday night, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. That's the main card. Pay-per-view. Good to have you in. It's the Herd. Been a crazy couple last days right now in America, right? We have a new president to elect, and there's been some reactions to it. This is Detroit Pistons head coach Stan Van Gundy. Obviously did not vote for Donald Trump. Here's what he said about our new president-elect yesterday at practice.
For our country to be where we are now, that we took a guy that, I don't care what anybody says, I'm sure they have other reasons and maybe good reasons for voting for Donald Trump, but I don't think anybody can deny this guy is openly and brazenly racist and misogynist and ethnocentric, and say that's okay with us, we're going to vote for him anyway. We have just thrown a good part of our population under the bus. And I have problems with thinking that this is where we are as a country. And it's tough on this group right here. We noticed it coming in. Everybody was a little quiet. My daughters were the same way, 3 of them. I mean, they know. We embrace a guy who is openly misogynist as our leader. I don't know. I don't know how we get past that.
Stan Van Gundy, excellent head coach, Detroit Pistons. Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, also very good coach, had this opinion.
Then all of a sudden you're faced with the reality that the man who's going to lead you has routinely used racist and misogynist, insulting words. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I will say this. I like living in a country where people are allowed strong opinions about the person that just got elected president. People had them 4 years ago, and people had them 8 years ago, and people have them today. I mean, would you rather live in a country where people hide their emotions? I wouldn't. I'm really okay 8 years ago, 4 years ago, and today. People coming out and having strong opinions. I think people increasingly only like opinions and results when they're favorable. But as Americans, we clearly love strong opinions because I see the ratings for Bill O'Reilly and Bill Maher and John Oliver and Rachel Maddow. It doesn't even matter what side. It doesn't matter what side politically. Those are the people that get the big ratings. The strongest opinions get the biggest ratings. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith. Those are the people that get the ratings. They have the strongest opinions. Bill Maher left. Bill O'Reilly right. They get the big ratings. You like opinions. You like them. I see it. You like them in sports. You like them in politics. Increasingly, though, we don't like them unless we agree with them. And I would say this. In sports, I've lost my whole life. My high school team was terrible. I'm from Seattle. My teams were terrible. I've had very little winning in my life in sports, so I've become accustomed to losing. All my my high school football team was bad. My college football basketball team wasn't very good. My NFL teams never won until recently. It's understood. Sports people understand losing is part of it. There's another day. And in politics, increasingly all I hear is 8 years ago, 4 years ago, and last night. The country's never going to be the same. We survived 9/11, depression, assassination of a president. We've had good presidents, bad presidents. Politics could take a lesson from sports. The more painful the loss, here's what always happens, without exception. It galvanizes your base, and you come back the following year or 4 years later stronger than ever. That I know. That is absolute. That is without exception in sports. And I just watched it happen in politics. Doc Rivers had an opinion, too, yesterday. Here's his.
Let me start by saying the sun came up this morning. And there was a time late last night, I wasn't sure if that was going to happen, but it did. And we're all going to be okay, everyone. We're going to be okay.
In sports, I'm not only comfortable with losing, I totally understand it. And I do know this. The more it hurts, the more it galvanizes the base. Go to work, bounce back, fight back. Part of the process. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay lost to the Colts this weekend. And remember, Aaron Rodgers blamed it on the rest of his team for lack of energy and focus. But now Brett Favre is talking about it, and he has someone else to blame. Okay, he said, Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers being the leader rather than talking about it afterwards. We've got to figure out a way to be excited about playing because bottom line is, even after this loss, they're no different than the way they were before. They've got just as good a chance, and they probably will win their division. And also, Brett Favre was blaming Aaron Rodgers, saying that he's questioning his leadership abilities.
Anything specifically from Brett Favre on that?
There is. We're working on that sound.
Okay.
But he's questioning his leadership from Aaron Rodgers. But you and I have talked about this before and wonder if it's even in his DNA to be that kind of a leader.
I think I said before, I think Aaron's got a little Kobe Bryant. I think he's a great talent. A-Rod's got this. I think A-Rod's a great talent. Kobe's a great talent. Aaron Rodgers is a great talent. Not everybody that's a great talent's a great leader. Kobe's not necessarily a leader. He's just remarkably talented. LeBron's a leader. Peyton Manning was a leader. Russell Wilson has leadership skills. Brock Osweiler could be a good quarterback. With his personality, I don't sense great leadership skills.
When I think of energy, because he's calling his team out for having energy, do you look at Aaron Rodgers and think of him as the spark of that? I don't look at him as a super energetic guy, so you can't call out the rest of your team.
You know what's remarkable in this Aaron Rodgers thing? And I'll pat myself in the back. 5 years ago, I kept asking this question. And everybody went to their nerdy message board and their Packer cheesedom and said, no, you are a hater. I've been asking this question for 5 years. Now the rest of the media now, and Brett Favre is saying what I've been saying is, watch the games. Watch his condescending eye rolls. Watch his separation on the sideline from teammates and coaches. You don't see that with Derek Carr. You don't see it with Tom Brady.
No.
So, just watch the games. You can see it. Read body language. It's not hard.
Speaking of body language, Tony Romo is back at practice in full pads with the scout team, and it has Ezekiel Elliott thinking about what it would be like for Dak if Tony took the starting role back.
It'd be tough. It'd be tough for any competitor. We all want to go out there and compete. We all want to go out there and play and be involved. But like I said many times, we're a team. We're a very close team. We all have one goal. We have one agenda, and that's to win football games. And, that's not decisions we make.
So Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott are clearly boys here, and you heard him talking about the chemistry that they have right now. So really, how much would it affect that chemistry if Tony Romo were to come in and shake it all up?
I don't necessarily know. It probably would affect it some. Listen, if they beat Pittsburgh, if they go to Pittsburgh, think about this. If they go to Pittsburgh and win, they'll have gone to Lambeau. They'll have gone to rival Washington. They'll have gone to Pittsburgh. After a while, it's like challenge, met it, next. They're just like check, check, check. What are you going to do?
Well, we talk about the effect that it would have on Dak Prescott, but what about Ezekiel Elliott? He's been so great so far, and if you put in Tony Romo, obviously it's going to affect Ezekiel's game a little bit, too.
I don't think so at all.
Why?
Hey, running backs, you hand the ball, there's the whole go.
Maybe he won't hand the ball off as much.
That can come from the sidelines. Yeah, that's possible.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the NFL is taking a close look at the ratings and why they're going down, aside from maybe the political shows taking away from their ratings. And they said they want to increase the pace of game to improve ratings, and they're looking at that as an option. Could the games be shorter? Are the replays too long? I don't think that's the problem. Do you?
I don't. I feel the same way about football as I do baseball. I don't think you can get paralyzed by it. I think all sports, like baseball games, those Cubs games, they were 4 hours. I was watching every second of it. I do think because of television timeouts and because sports is getting more situational, it's bigger business, games matter more, everything lasts longer, there's more rules, there's more replay. Replay didn't exist 20 years ago. Now it's everywhere. So, yeah, I think once you get past 3 hours, you're asking a lot from it with movies.
Sure.
Like the first thing I do when I see a movie, I look at length of time. And if it's over like 2:25, I told you before, I look at movies and like there's a line to me. And I don't even know why this is the line, but it's like 2 hours, 19 minutes. And I don't know why. There's something about once you get to 2:20, I'm like, God, that's a slog. But if it's under 2:20 in a movie, I can be like, even if it's bad, it's 2.5 hours. I'll go have a popcorn, I'll have a water, But once you get to like 2:20, then I'm like, I start talking to myself, okay, there's a 5-minute drive, 5-minute back, it's going to waste my life, it'll be 3 hours. That's why I don't golf anymore.
You would have popcorn and water at a movie. But why you go to movies is because stars draw you, right? You go to movies that have Tom Hanks, your favorite.
Generally, yes.
I think that's what the NFL is missing, is stars. And it's trying to kind of water down their stars. I like it when guys are celebrating. And if you think about little kids who are watching the game, their favorite player is going to be a guy like Des Bryant and like Odell Beckham Jr. who are excited about their plays. And when the NFL is trying to squash that, I think they're taking away from their stars.
Yeah,
I really do. And Peyton Manning not being around this year definitely hurts as well. But I don't
Peyton
find myself
Manning,
being drawn to a marquee game because of the star players that used to be there.
Well, Peyton Manning didn't celebrate, and Brady doesn't celebrate.
No, they don't. But they are stars.
Oh, yes.
And there aren't as many stars right now, and why?
Yeah, no, we've had a dip. This happened back in the late 90s when Aikman and Steve Young and Marino and Elway. We've seen this happen before where you lose like 4 or 5 big guys over a 2-year period. Listen, losing Brett Favre and Peyton Manning in a couple-year period, those guys were the 2 most popular players in the league. I mean, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, they're on every commercial.
Yep, that's the news.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I saw this. Conor McGregor is set to call us. He takes on Eddie Alvarez. They have a press conference today. That's following our show. There'll be a press conference. So at the end of our show, stick around. Those press conferences in UFC get crazy. So following our show today on FS1, Conor McGregor, the UFC featherweight champ, is going to fight Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie's defending his lightweight title. It's his first title defense. And it's the first fight in New York State. And this has been a long time coming for the UFC, a sport that I initially, and I wrote it in my first book, not my second, my first. Whether I liked it or not, I always respected Dana White as a businessman. And I can remember when Dana White bought this thing with the Fertitta family for $2 million, and they just sold it for $4 billion 12 years later. It's a remarkably well-run business. It has essentially disintegrated. It's really, I shouldn't say boxing's dead, but it's on a respirator. And boxing now looks so inactive and lacks the energy that UFC has and the stars. And wrestling, which has always been very theatrical, we knew it wasn't authentic, but it's theatrical, even they can't create stars. I mean, they're using Goldberg and The Undertaker, and I mean, they don't, The Rock, Brock Lesnar, they can't create stars. It's very hard. The one thing the UFC does, and we know in America this works. We know in America this works. It works in Canada. Their most popular broadcaster is a guy named Don Cherry. He's a loon. So Conor McGregor is a star, and he's a global star. And there's not many of them. There aren't. So when you get them, you got to promote them. And Dana White and Conor can argue over money and you know how many interviews he has to do. But when you get a Conor McGregor, man, he's 28 years old. They don't last long. They do not last long. Conor McGregor will be fighting Eddie Alvarez. You are 28 years old, Conor. You're a guy that could do a lot of things. You could do a lot of things in your life, Conor. If I said to you, you're going to fight 2 or 3 more times and that's it, is that unrealistic? How much longer do you go?
You never know as far as competitive fighting goes, but I'm going to last a lifetime. Let me tell you that. You know, I'm going nowhere fast anytime soon. So, but as far as competitive fighting, you know, who knows? It's a dangerous business. It is a crazy business. I'm enjoying the ride right now. I'm fresh. I'm in my prime. I'm only coming into my prime, 28 years of age, as you say. So we'll see. But right now I'm living in the moment. You know, we're in New York City. The city is absolutely buzzing. The energy is through the roof. I'm about to go and collect the second one title, history making. I'm just enjoying this moment right now. And then we'll see what's after that when we get shut.
Conor, sometimes football players will say when they get into the Super Bowl, they've got so much energy, they can make mistakes. There's a difference fighting in Vegas and L.A. You are at Madison Square Garden. This will be the biggest moment, in my opinion, in UFC history. Are you concerned at all that you'll be too hyped up?
No, because I'm an experienced fighter nowadays. I've learned from many experiences that I've came through. I'll certainly be hyped up at the press conference. I'll certainly be hyped up at the weigh-ins. I'll be hyped up at the correct times. But come fight time, I'll be right bang in the center. I'll be in the zone. I will neither shy away from it or be hyped up from it. I will just be right in the middle area, taking in all the energy, and I will go in and handle my business.
I lived in Vegas.
That's a veteran fighter. Not many people can do that. You know, many people get swallowed by it or get too excited by it. Only a veteran that's been at the top for for many fights can go and do that, and that's what I'm going to go and do.
Conor, I watched the Nate Diaz fight. I said it at the time. It reminded me of Ali Frazier. It was remarkable sports television. With Nate Diaz, will the Eddie Alvarez fight be that combative? Do you think it will be a similar looking fight?
I don't think he has the. He doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the range. He doesn't have the cardio. He has the toughness. He's a tough guy. He's been around the block. He's been a champion in previous organizations. The organization he was in previously was champion. Now he's the UFC champion. He's tough. So if he can last and if he can get back up off the floor like Nate did, then maybe we'll have a barn burner. But I just don't. I don't see it. I see him. He's too easily hit, and that's it. He doesn't have any attributes to aid him. He doesn't have reach. He doesn't have height. He doesn't have size. So I can't see it going any other way than a dominating performance and a stoppage by knockout or strangle. So we'll see. But I'm ready. I'm ready to go into the trenches. I've become a lot more accustomed to that now. So I look forward to that if he can bring that out of me. So we'll see. But it's going to be a hell of a fight, know that.
How surprised were you, Conor McGregor on the line, when he called you the least intimidating fighter he's ever fought?
Yeah, he's got to say something. But he's got to say something to hype himself up. But in reality, all they do is talk about me. All they do is worry about me. His coach has been planning to fight me since way back. So he can say what he wants. But when we came face to face, When we came face to face originally, he stood on his tippy toes. He had a weird reaction. He started making these funny faces, tilting his head side to side. It was a you can't hide these reactions. In that moment, in that pressure moment, when the fans and everyone's there, you cannot fake these moments. You can't hide them. And between me and him, we could see what's happening. It's a guy that doesn't know what's happening. He's panicking in there, and he's trying to convince himself this is not what this is, but it is what it is. And on Saturday night, he will find that out.
Conor, I looked this morning and I was reading a file on you about who was your inspiration. And a lot of people have inspirations. But to be as great as you are, I was surprised that you didn't have an inspiration. Can you explain that to the audience?
I take inspiration from absolutely everything. Maybe you read that wrong. Not necessarily a sole individual, but I take inspiration from anyone who's working hard, who's chasing their dreams, who's going against the odds, anyone who's being told that they cannot do something, that are actually going and doing that something. That is what inspires me, and that can be from any field, not just from fighting. That can be from any walk of life, even somebody chasing a dream of setting up a business or anything. Just somebody who's hardworking, somebody who's pushing on and going against the grain and defying the odds. That inspires me and motivates me.
Conor McGregor joining us. Eddie Alvarez. It is... this fight is going to... Madison Square Garden, and I used to live in the East Coast, is just a remarkable venue. And New York, there's so much energy in this city. And, Conor, you are now, if you count boxing and UFC, you are a star in America. Do you sense it? Do you like it? Are you oblivious? Like, how does that land for you?
It feels good to come over this side of the pond. I'm not from here, but right. I certainly feel like I run here. I walk outside and there's fans, and they must be behind they're kept behind barricades to keep them. It's absolutely crazy out here at the moment. So I'm just embracing it. I'm grateful for it. And Saturday night, I will go and prove my worth here and put on a great show for my fans that are showing me the love out here for a kid that's not from here. Like I said, I'm from Dublin, Ireland. And to come over here in these places and be made feel like a king out here it's a great feeling and an inspiring and motivating feeling.
Dana White said you're going to become the first fighter potentially to hold two belts simultaneously, and Dana White has said, "Listen, we can't. We got to take one from you." Does it? What is your relationship? Because you and Dana are both really business people. What's your relationship today with Dana?
I love Dana. I've all the time in the world for Dana. Him and Lorenzo, they help mentor me in this game. And as far as that decision, I mean, they're talking of stripping me before I even get it. I was like, it's strange to me. I mean, I'm the reason. I'm the reason. I'm the reason they're all chilling right now. I'm the reason the company was sold for 4.2 billion, and I continue to show up. I continue to fight. I continue to break all these records and bring the sport to that next level. Because no other fighter is on that next level. I'd be watching cards that don't involve me, and I'm like, I know why this sport has not got to that next level just yet, or hit that mainstream, because none of these fighters are on that mainstream. They're not there yet. They fight sloppy. They fight ugly. There's no clean work. There's no, So, I mean, all this stuff I'm doing, and then they're talking about stripping the belt before I even get it. Look, it is what it is. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, I'm focused on the moment. This is historic. No one's going to take this moment away. They're trying to take it away from me before I even got it. But hey, this is the business we're in. It's a cruel, crazy business. But I'm going to go and cement my name in history. And that's it. Raise these 2 world titles, and then, like I said before, bring that army, because you're going to need that army to come take that belt off me. And that's what I'm saying. So we'll see what happens.
Conor McGregor, finally, press conference at 3 Eastern today after our show. And I used to cover Mike Tyson, and about 24 to 48 hours before a fight, Mike Tyson's personality changed. When do you get to that moment before the fight when Conor, you don't even want people around you?
I think that's just fear. That's just another form of fear. I see that sometimes. Like, people take this phone away from me. I'm gonna not be in contact with anyone the day before the fight. Man, I could be on the phone walking into the octagon. It's another day for me. It's another day for me, and that's the way I treat it. So I understand how I prepare to make the walk. I understand. I do my warm up routines and I keep everything correct. I loosen out the body, but as far as keeping people away from me, that's just like a superstition, and to me, superstition is simply another word for fear. So I don't have that. I don't need a pair of lucky jocks, and if I don't have them jocks, then I'm and it's over. And that's all that is. That's ridiculous to me. So it's just another day for me doing what I do, whooping ass and looking good.
Awesome. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez. Watch the fight, folks. Thank you, Conor.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Dude, he's intense.
He's always a good interview.
That was fun. This is The Herd.
Hi, it's The Herd. Buying tickets online for sports and concerts has always been kind of a confusing process for a long, long time. Always been hard to find the best deal for that game or show you want to do. And none of those older ticket sites, they don't want to change that. But SeatGeek is different. They've come along and created an amazing app and website that makes it easier than ever for you and I to buy and sell tickets. SeatGeek is the place you should go and I go to look for tickets to a game or a concert. Everything about SeatGeek is designed to make life easier. They do all the price comparison for you by searching multiple ticket sites. And they want to help you get the most bang for your buck. That's why every ticket on SeatGeek is given a grade based on value. So you immediately see any underpriced seats and you find the best deals that fit your budget. Best of all, my listeners in The Herd get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. So to get your $20 rebate, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code, and then just enter HERD. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first purchase. Download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code HERD today.
Welcome in. Good to have you in. Did you see this, what Kevin Durant did last night? 28 points, 4 for 7 on threes. He's averaging 29, 7.5, and 3.5. He's clearly become the alpha dog on that team, the Warriors. But here's the thing about Kevin Durant. Everybody criticized him when he left, but he's taking fewer shots. In fact, he's taking the fewest shots since his rookie season, yet his average is the same. Isn't this exactly why Kevin Durant moved? He's now shooting 58%, not 48%. Oh, he lacked courage. I would argue that going somewhere and you know you're going to get crushed by fans and the media actually is courage. Loyalty's the safe way. Doesn't mean loyalty's bad, but it's easier. It's easier for me to stay at a place. It's harder to rebuild my program. But Kevin Durant didn't want more shots. He wanted better shots. And it's an indictment of Russell Westbrook. He couldn't get these type of shots. Kevin Durant chose quality over quantity, and I love that choice. Work smarter, not harder. You hear that all the time. So, I mean, largely the goal in life for all of us, right, is to work a little less and hopefully keep mostly the same quality of life, income, free time. If somebody came to you and said, same income, but you can work 30% less, it'll be a little easier. I'll give you a little support staff. It'll be a little easier. You'd be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Okay, that's what Kevin Durant did. Kevin Durant selfish. No. Kevin Durant now is shooting a significantly higher percentage on fewer shots. His average is the same. Who wouldn't take that? Like I maybe it's the puritanical nature of America. There's got to be an honest day's work. Yes, but if you were an attorney, a doctor, a school teacher, a landscaper, if you could make the same working 40% less, why wouldn't you? What's happening to Kevin Durant right now is exactly why he left. He's getting far more open looks, shooting like 50%, 58%. That's why he left. That's exactly, these guys that leave, we always burn their jerseys. We do. We always want to burn their jerseys, but the best sign that you made the right move if somebody burns your jersey.
Because it meant something to them.
Yeah, I mean, it meant something, and there was a ton of passion about you, and it also means you're really good. I mean, nobody's burning a jersey when Rudy Gay leaves town. They're doing it when LeBron leaves town and Kevin Durant leaves town and, Dwayne Wade leaves town. I mean, you have to be a Hall of Famer. Kevin Garnett leaves town. People are upset. Like when a Hall of Famer leaves town, there are not many of them in the league. People get really upset. And that's what Chris Broussard was on our show last week talking about that. There's like this whole thing here. They're smart, high-end players. They're smart basketball players. It will eventually work out. Now, I don't think necessarily their bench is as good. I think they need more beef. They don't have a rim protector. But here's Chris Broussard.
To Wade's credit, because that's one of the first times, I think the first time in NBA history that an alpha dog in his prime on a team, had his own team, and gave his team over. Yeah, gave it to LeBron and, want to win championships. So I give Wade a lot of credit for that. Steph may have to do that.
I think
Steph may have. He's still going to be a superstar, just like Wade was. But to the degree that they're going to have a number one option, I think it's Durant.
It is Durant.
Did you see what happened with their free throws yesterday?
How many did they shoot?
22.
It's better.
They got 13 points.
That's better.
I just don't think that's the difference. They beat the Mavericks by way more than 13 points.
But you're not going to face the Mavericks in the playoffs. You're going to face good teams. If you're trying to make up another weekend spent in your football lair, why don't you surprise her with 1-800-Flowers.com's bouquet? 36 stunning autumn roses. $36, that's it. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon, enter HERD. Offer ends Friday, 1-800-Flowers.com. Our NFL meat sandwich on Thursday, as always. Greg Cosell is right around the corner. How great was Conor McGregor? We have an exclusive from the Dallas Cowboys around the corner as well. It's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio. Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Great to have you in on a Thursday. I'm going casual today. Crazy casual. Christine Leahy joining me as always.
You wanted to leave the shirt unbuttoned. I say it's your choice.
I did ask you.
You did ask me, and I said I think you can do whatever you want, and it looks cool. It's cool. Like being unbuttoned is totally okay.
Okay. I asked you this morning.
It fits your personality, and I think it looks great.
I think I'm unhinged and unbuttoned.
Yeah. It's just a casual you. Why do you always have to be so buttoned up? Although you do say you got to keep it buttoned up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go do a lot more casual.
I
think the new me is going to be really unbuttoned.
Okay. Well, you didn't wear a sweater today, so I think that's the next best thing.
And I'm not wearing one tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm fighting through
Maybe a T-shirt tomorrow, a V-neck?
Let's not go crazy. So NFL teams are preparing mega offers for Jim Harbaugh. Greg Cosell in a couple of minutes. That's the story today. Bleacher Report comes out and says NFL teams are lining up mega offers. Those are going to be in the $10 million to $15 million range, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't have financial envy. If it's the open market, he's there. Let it work. You want to pay $10 million? Go for it. He's making $9 million at Michigan. That's college where the players don't make anything. But I don't think you can duplicate Harbaugh. I think he's such a unique personality that I've seen coaches that coach like Nick Saban. I've never seen a coach that coaches like Jim Harbaugh. We were talking yesterday to Eric Mangini, who coached with Harbaugh for a couple of years. He said he's not like another human he's ever been around in football.
So many coaches I've been around have talked about I love football or the love of the game. He is the extreme of that. He's the guy that when we'd come back during training camp, couldn't sleep the night before because he was so excited to get back to work, like a young, like a childlike enthusiasm for the game. And it's so sincere, it resonates with the players.
It's just a power of personality. I mean, if you think about, I've never seen anything like this year. I really have never seen anything like this. Nick Saban didn't turn Michigan State and LSU around or Alabama this quickly. Think about this. Last year with Brady Hoke. Brady Hoke's last year at Michigan. They won 5 games. Appalachian State, Miami of Ohio, Penn State barely on sanctions, Northwestern 10-9, and they beat convincingly a bad Indiana team. His last year, Michigan played 3 ranked teams, destroyed, outscored 108-39. So in comes Harbaugh in his first year with the same players, 7 blowout wins. And the scores were like 31-0, 38-0, 49-16. Beat an SEC team 41-7. And then this year, 7 more blowouts. 63-3, 49-10, 51-14, 78-0, 41-8, 59-3. And he's got about 4 more blowouts on that schedule. His average score right now since he arrived at Michigan's almost 40-14. And the Big Ten's better now than it's been in years. So, I mean, when Urban Meyer took a 6-7 Ohio State to undefeated, 6 of his wins in that undefeated season were 1-possession wins. I mean, Michigan's not winning. They're destroying everybody. Pete Carroll didn't do this in his second year. Nick Saban didn't do this in his second year. Urban Meyer didn't do this in his second year. I mean, they're becoming Alabama North. They are humiliating people. I mean, it is something to watch. When you really need to be there, you really need an Interstate battery. It's the battery auto techs prefer. Outrageously dependable. Interstate batteries. Go to interstatebatteries.com. I mean, these scores are ridiculous. Greg Cosell, 30 years, NFL Films. We bring him in on Thursdays. How are you, Greg?
Colin, I wish it was only 30. It's 37 now. Can you believe it?
Wow. And you still love what you do?
I do. I'm in my 37th NFL season here at Films.
Isn't that amazing?
That's insane.
That is insane. And by the way, when he started, it was, do you remember the first year?
I sure do. I started on July 23rd, 1979.
How do you know that?
And what kind of film was there? Like, what was the film like?
Well, back then, it was actually film. You know what you think of as film, like you're watching on an old projector at home. It was film.
So you had to tape it together?
We had to splice it together. There were 2 ways to do it. There was actually tape, and there was something called hot splicing, where you used a certain kind of glue.
Oh my gosh! Like an Elmer's glue?
Well, yeah, kind of. It didn't quite say Elmer's on the product, but yeah, I imagine it wasn't all that dissimilar.
Yeah. So I'm watching Denver and Oakland, and everybody's going to talk about Derek Carr, but what I noticed in that game was the line play.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, we know Derek Carr's talented, but when you watch the tape, you know, the fact that Oakland went toe-to-toe in the trenches, it seemed to me at times, was a bigger win. What did you see?
I agree on both sides. And I think that one of the things that stands out there, and you hear this all the time in all sports, Colin, is that to be a championship-type contender, you need to be able to win more than one way. Because if you can only win one way, you're going to come up against good teams. As the magnitude of the games gets bigger, the teams get better. So teams then take away your strength. So if you can only win one way, and last week we spent a lot of time talking about Carr after he threw for 513, deservedly so, of course, but you have to be able to win more than one way. And I thought in that game, defensively as well, and offensively clearly, as you suggested, they were able to win physically. They were able to win a trench warfare kind of game. And I think that that's really important for their development moving forward.
All right, with Dak Prescott, when you look at film, here's my question. Are the Cowboys opening up the playbook, or are you seeing the same kind of variations and schemes from week one to now? Tell me about the expansion of the plays.
I think it's not so much the expansion of the playbook. I think it's comfort with players. Like, for instance, this week in particular, I thought that Jason Witten and Prescott really started developing a little chemistry on routes, because Witten has not really been a big factor in their passing game through the first part of the season, as big as we were used to seeing. But I thought this week there were a number of plays where Witten and Prescott, against zone coverage in particular, really sort of worked together and understood where the void was, when he would get into the void, and therefore when the ball gets thrown. So I don't think it's necessarily an expansion of concepts. I think it's a better understanding of working together. And you can't rush that. That has to happen organically over time.
Yeah. It's funny about offenses. The San Diego Chargers are interesting. Every time I watch the Chargers, it's one of the best teams with a losing record I've ever seen. And I was sitting there watching it the other day, and I'm like, God, they're just a machine offensively. Is it schematics? Is it personnel? What is it about their offense?
Well, it's both, because Phillip Rivers is maybe one of the greatest overlooked quarterbacks that we've seen in a long, long time. But I think what's happened in particular the last 2 weeks, starting with the Denver game, is Melvin Gordon. When he came out of Wisconsin, one issue I thought he had was I thought he'd struggle as an NFL runner because he ran through gaping holes in college, and I didn't think he was a guy who really hit it up inside when the point of attack was closed. 2 weeks ago against Denver, obviously a very good defense, he ran hard. He gained hard yards, and that's the sign of an NFL runner, and that continued this week. And I think now they have it looks like he'll be a true feature-type back. Plus their defense, their front seven is getting very, very good. Joey Bosa is going to be a very, very good player.
Yeah, he is. I was wrong on that one. When you watch the Steelers, obviously Big Ben off an injury, you could just say it's just rust, maybe his motion wasn't there, but it was inept. I mean, one first down in the first half. I mean, it was completely offensively inept. Okay.
I'll tell you what I saw. I mean, what I saw was his feet were a little heavy. He didn't look comfortable transferring his weight throwing the ball, and that always causes problems. He was inaccurate because of that. The Ravens played a lot of what we call too high coverage, which means they're daring him to throw the ball underneath. They're daring him to be patient, and he wasn't overly patient. And believe it or not, I thought his receivers struggled to win against man coverage. And I think that even Antonio Brown, this was not a real good game for Antonio Brown. And then the other receivers, Sammy Coates did not have a good game. So it was a combination of things, but Ben did not look like himself. Maybe he played a week early. We don't know that.
Okay, so Matt Ryan's always been solid. This year he looks spectacular. And, I look at his body type, I look at his throwing motion, and I think, okay, well, what is it? I mean, tell me on the tape, compare him to last year.
Well, second year in a system. This is an offense that is starting to expand concepts. Before Coleman got hurt, they were using him as a receiver really effectively, detaching him from the formation, creating matchups. I think as this year has progressed, they've gotten a tight end now that can actually attack vertically in Austin Hooper, the rookie from Stanford. Yeah. So now they have more dimensions than they had a year ago. So I think Matt Ryan's always been a good quarterback, Colin. I think the numbers are just a function of the fact that they now have more dimensions to their offense.
Yeah, and he's comfortable using those. Now, when I watched the Colts in Green Bay, the energy from Green Bay was flat. I mean, it was fairly. I mean, from the opening kickoff on, it was like, all right, we have an urgency situation here. Indianapolis came in fired up, but I don't want to talk necessarily just about Aaron Rodgers, and that's fine. He whatever. Beyond Aaron Rodgers, when you look at their running game, their protection issues, what's wrong with Green Bay?
Well, first of all, they're playing predominantly now with 4 and 5 wide receivers because I think Starks is due to come back this week, but they haven't really had a running back, so they've used Montgomery as a running back, and he's done okay, but they've essentially played with 4 and 5 wide receiver personnel, so they don't really have a stable run game. And no matter how good you might think the quarterback is, it's very difficult to play that way in the NFL. And while Rodgers' numbers are good, and at the end of the day, he's not playing very consistently either. And we could go through that because the tape tells all. And I watch him very, very closely because he's now become a very polarizing figure. But this game, there were receivers open that he missed, and I keep trying when I watch tape to think, okay, what's his reading progression here? Because I see receivers open. So I'm trying to figure that out, and I don't presume to know, although I've seen enough football to know more often than not. But this is an offense that really has no consistent run game and a very week-to-week passing game.
So, but you are seeing, everybody says, Aaron, nobody's open. The announcers...
Well, that's always easy to say, and that's true every once in a while. That's always true for every team, every once in a while. But last week, there were receivers open against the Colts.
Wow. You've been so brutally honest with Aaron Rodgers. All right, I'm excited for this. One big play, we go to the rookie, Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and just before we run it, I mean, people will remember this play, and they're going to look at it and think, oh, somebody blew a coverage because he's open. So let's run the play. It was the first touchdown of the game. It was Jason Witten. And you see where he catches it, Colin? He looks like like somebody blew a coverage. How could someone be wide open?
Right.
This is a classic case of breaking down a coverage with your route concepts. You see the route concepts right here. Okay? The coverage is what we call quarters. So what Terrence Williams' route does is he distorts the coverage responsibilities of the safety and the corner. Because as he breaks inside, when does the safety pick him up? When does the corner pass him on? It's tough to know that. It distorts their responsibilities. So now Witten breaks outside to the corner. It's technically the corner's responsibility. But when does he give up Terrence Williams running to the post? Because he is responsible for the vertical route by the outside receiver. So when does he do that? And he runs inside, and then Witten breaks to the corner. Now that's Jamie Collins underneath, but that's awful hard to expect him to get that kind of depth on a drop. So what you're seeing is a really good route concept that breaks down a specific zone coverage. So people see this play and they say, oh, they blew the coverage. They didn't blow the coverage. The coverage was broken down by the route concept.
Just got smarter. Yeah. It's amazing. You use that phrase a lot, route concepts. You talk about Andy Reid.
Well, that's how the passing game is taught.
Yeah.
It's concepts. You don't just go out and throw it to the open receiver. I remember Mike Martz, who I used to spend a lot of time with, would always tell me that you have to understand coverages and everything about them so you would know how to break them down. Because, there's a certain number of coverages in the NFL. And zone coverages, there's always an opening. So how do you get to that opening? How do you get to that void?
Greg Cosell, 37 years.
37, Colin.
No longer uses Elmer's. He is gone uptown.
And the key thing is I started when I was 5 years old, believe it or not.
Greg, good talking to you.
All right, Colin, thanks. Take care.
One of the most outspoken and popular people in any NFL market in the country, Mark Madden, Pittsburgh, on the Steelers. I've been very critical of Mike Tomlin. They play the Cowboys this weekend. He'll be joining us live from Pittsburgh in a couple of minutes. So on Monday Night Football, which I thought was a wildly entertaining football game, I thought Buffalo should have won the game, but Rex Ryan teams often should win and don't. Pete Carroll's teams are often outplayed and yet win. Richard Sherman jumps offside, hits the kicker, Dan Carpenter, right here. And Richard Sherman knew once he was offsides, I'm not giving the guy a free kick. So he went and touched the football. Actually, a very smart play by Sherman, not being offsides, but doing what he did after that. Well, Dan Carpenter, the kicker's wife, went out and had a tweet. And it was insensitive. It said, I know what we do on the farm when a male can't control his own rage. And so, Sherman hashtag acts like an animal, get treated like one. Richard, she came out then and apologized for it and said this is insensitive. This is Dan Carpenter's wife. After the tweet, she got some pushback from a lot of people and came out and said, I was trying to be funny. It obviously didn't work. And then Richard Sherman came out about her apology, and here's what Richard Sherman had to say.
You get it from the social media cowards all the time, but nobody's ever said it to my face. Most people don't live that kind of life. People are much more brave behind the screen. No consequence, no chance of any altercation or anything, any consequence. When somebody actually has to say something to someone's face and deal with the consequences, they're a lot more reserved.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? But I was thinking about this, Christine Leahy. I was thinking about this. Like, we've seen this multiple times now. Like the star athlete or the athlete, and the wife says something.
Right.
So let's reverse it. Megyn Kelly's husband. I don't want to hear from him.
No.
And I think Megyn Kelly should say, don't comment about politics.
Right.
The CEO of General Motors is a woman. You should say, I don't want you talking about my industry.
Right. It takes away from her.
I have no problem with a professional athlete saying to his girlfriend or wife, don't talk about my career.
I completely agree.
I don't think it's misogynistic. I think Megyn Kelly's husband should not be talking about Sean Hannity.
No.
Ever. Any circumstances.
No, it's interfering with her husband's job, because you don't think that Richard Sherman then is going to put a little extra on what he does the next time he faces them. However, I will say that probably from the woman's perspective, it's probably very hard to watch your husband get hit like that and not feel something emotional. I'm not saying she's right for what she did, but I do think it's probably very hard.
Yeah, her apology was, when I saw the out-of-control nature of the events that happened on the field, I wanted to relate jokingly to life on the farm. Unfortunately, I did not realize that tone of racism would dominate the response to what I intended to be a lighthearted defense of my husband.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't take it as racism.
Yeah, some people did. I mean, again, I stay off social media. It's you got to be very careful there. But Miami Dolphins released a player due to his wife's social media account.
She was saying a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's just one of those discussions like married people or dating people have.
Yeah,
like
you're
that's
part
a
of
grown-up
the team. You can't affect my job negatively.
Jim Harbaugh's wife, I'm sure they've had a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Stay out of that space. Mm-hmm. I think that's a real conversation that like married couples would have. I have no problem with now, if you marry a strong woman, that's going to be harder to do. I mean, if you marry a really strong woman, she's going to have opinions, but I still think a strong woman is secure enough
for sure
that you could go to her and say, stay out of that, and she'd be like, all good.
Like, Anne is a strong woman, but I think she always has in mind that she's also a representative of you. And she would never do anything to put your name or your brand in harm's way.
No question.
Right.
She's a grown-up.
Mm-hmm.
Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Tony Romo is back at practice, and while he might only be practicing with the scout team, cornerback Brandon Carr says that Romo is looking fantastic.
Real look. He's a guy that's going to look you off. He's checking at the line of scrimmage like it's a real football game. So, I mean, you're getting as close to a Sunday look as you can with the scout team quarterback. A little both. He still has to keep himself prepared, keep himself sharp to go out there and play his game as well. So he mixes it up, tries to run the car. But if he sees something that will help us out as a defense, he'll make sure he check into it to make us get better.
Here's the question. If Tony Romo looks perfect at practice, does it even matter?
Not as long as Dak's winning.
Right?
Right.
He can be the best he possibly can be, and I really don't think it matters until Dak loses.
I think I cannot wait to watch this game.
Uh-huh.
This, to me, is really fascinating. Pittsburgh's favored.
Yeah. Okay, so even if you weren't as interested, you're going to be more interested when you hear the story, because this made me want to watch this, and I'm scared now. The Steelers say that they plan to really go after Ezekiel Elliott, and this sounds scary. I'm going to read you this quote. It's from linebacker Arthur Moats. It says, it's important you have multiple guys hitting him. They're talking about Ezekiel Elliott. The hits accumulate on him where if he makes the first guys miss, you have 2 or 3 guys coming in to finish him off as well. I'm scared for Ezekiel Elliott.
No, he'll be fine. He's a really physical runner.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Pittsburgh's not as physical defensively as they used to be. They're not the same team. I've been very critical of Mike Tomlin, who I think is a kind of a player's coach, and I think there's limitations sometimes to that. So I think their defense, we always point to the quarterbacks. Pittsburgh's defense isn't the same. They don't seem to me to be as intimidating. For years and years, they were intimidating with Dick LeBeau.
Well, I hope not, especially for Ezekiel Elliott. I kind of felt bad for him after that. And finally, Tom Brady is getting closer to being the winningest quarterback in NFL history.
Really?
He has 198 wins right now, so he only needs one more to tie Brett Favre, 2 more to tie Peyton Manning. And if he gets 3 more wins, he will be the winningest quarterback in NFL history, and that's when you include postseason wins. And if we take a look at the rest of the Patriots' schedule, it looks very, very possible. So they play the Seahawks, the 49ers, and then the Jets. So if they win all 3 of those games, look, Seattle, then he would be...
Well, he's going to become the winningest quarterback by the end of the year, period.
No, but you don't think they'll win the next 3 games? Look at that. Seahawks, 49ers, Jets.
I think Seattle is going to be really competitive.
You think that they'll lose?
I do. I think Seattle...
No, they're at home. No way. I think they're going to win the next 3 straight. I think by...
I don't think
New
England's defense is not as good as Bill Belichick thought it was going to be. That's why he got rid of Jamie Collins. That defense has not been great this year. They give up a lot of chunks of yards.
I just think this is extra motivation for the Patriots, extra motivation for Tom Brady. Not that he needs any more this season. I think they're going to win the next 3 straight.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I've said it for years. Very few local sports people, columnists used to be harsh. Now they often wave pom-poms. Very few local sportscasters, Mike Francesa in New York, Dale Hansen in Dallas, Mark Madden in Pittsburgh, are willing to examine the home team and be at times wildly unpopular with their opinions. And in Pittsburgh, it may be a city, but it feels often like a small town. The Steelers are a way of life like the Packers in Green Bay. Via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network, Mark Madden, outstanding talk show host in Pittsburgh on 105.9 WXDX. Mark Madden is now joining us in Pittsburgh. So first of all, Mark, I want to start with this. The line for the game has Pittsburgh favored. How surprised were you by that?
Extremely surprised. First off, tell Christina to not worry about Zeke. The Steelers miss as many tackles as they make. He's going to be just fine.
Thank you.
If he needs comforting, he can call Mike Wallace and ask him how that little out turned out last week at Baltimore. I am not really surprised the Steelers are favored because all year long, the media, the odds makers, football people, they keep waiting for the Steelers to be what they're supposed to be, and they ignore what the Steelers are, which right now is just not a very good football team. They've lost 3 games. They have not looked good doing it. You can blame injuries for some of their problems, but they were mostly healthy at Baltimore last week, and they were never in danger of winning that game, Colin. They got some stats. They got 14 points at garbage time, but that's it. That's the list. They just aren't playing good football, and I'll be shocked if Dallas doesn't not only win Sunday at Heinz Field, but win handily.
How much of this is on Mike Tomlin, the head coach?
Oh, a lot of it. I know you say that Mike gets a free pass. We talked about that on my show not too long ago. And I agree, but I think it's from the standpoint that the media, not just in Pittsburgh but nationally, know Mike Tomlin's not going to get fired. The Steelers have only had 3 head coaches since 1969 when they hired Chuck Noll. They went from Noll to Bill Cowherd, now to Mike Tomlin. So you don't clamor for what's not going to happen, but he's a player's coach. I heard you talking about that before I came on. And I think players' coaches come with an expiration date. And if the Steelers' policy was going to continue where they keep their coaches for, a decade or more, maybe it would have been a better idea to hire somebody not quite as much of a player's coach as Mike Tomlin. Bill Cowher was to a degree, but not to this degree. Mike Tomlin brought back James Harrison because they're buddies and for no other reason. Harrison was okay last year up until the 2 sacks at Baltimore. He had done nothing this year. They bring in Joey Porter as a linebackers coach despite precious little experience coaching at any level. And the Steelers' outside linebackers just aren't getting better. It's a buddy system in Pittsburgh, and that works for a while and did work for a while with Tomlin, Colin, because the players rally around the coach, but it wears out. Your credibility dissipates, and that's where the Steelers are at right now. I don't think it's a matter of not listening to Mike Tomlin. I just don't think he has the impact, and with that impact leaving, the discipline has disappeared too. Case in point, 10 penalties in the first half last week at Baltimore. Then they come out and they're offside on the second half kickoff. I mean, my God.
Big Ben's health. You know, here's what's interesting to me. Big Ben a couple of weeks ago questioned Tomlin's practice. Le'Veon Bell said the other day, our practices aren't tight. We have penalties in practice. Are you surprised, how surprised, that star players are saying that? You would never hear a Patriot talk about the Patriots' practices. How's that land for you?
And you never would have heard, say, Lynn Swann or Franco Harris talk about how bad Chuck Noll's practices were either. It's very strange to hear things like that said by a Pittsburgh Steeler about the coach. That said, I think there's X amount of truth in what Ben said, in what Le'Veon Bell said. But I think that those two guys and a lot of other guys need to look in the mirror. I do think Ben came back a bit too early, and his play suffered at Baltimore because of that. Le'Veon Bell's been back for 5 games since his pot suspension. Colin, he still doesn't have a touchdown. I mean, maybe that's on the play calling, Todd Haley, but Le'Veon Bell, if you're the best running back in football, you should, get in the end zone at some point, especially given all the touches you get. But, yeah, I was surprised when those guys criticized the coaching. I was surprised even more when it didn't cause much of a ruckus in the Pittsburgh media or among the fans. They perceived it as one buddy chastising another buddy, not an employee talking about the boss. I think not only what they said, but the reaction to it indicates that Tomlin has hit his sell-by date in terms of being a player's coach.
Mark Madden joining us, Pittsburgh. What was the reaction locally about the botched onside kick from Chris Boswell last weekend against Baltimore? I'm sure we'll show the tape. I can't imagine a Nick Saban player ad-libbing that. I didn't know what to make of it. What'd you make of it?
Well, it was planned for sure, Colin. That's called a Rabona kick. It's something from soccer where you whip your back leg around the front leg and you kind of kick misdirection style. Chris Boswell did that at Rice to perfection. I posted a video of that on my blog. So I can see trying it. It failed miserably, but I can see trying it. Hey, put it this way. Of the many disasters that the Pittsburgh Steelers have spawned this year, that was one of the least.
Mark Madden joining us. So, again, you think Pittsburgh gets clobbered this weekend?
Well, maybe not clobbered. Maybe 10, 13 points somewhere in there. And it would be just like them after losing 3 straight to beat a 7-1 team, especially at home where they are a considerably better team and where Ben Roethlisberger plays considerably better. And then, of course, and I predicted this already, Colin, then they're going to go to Cleveland and lose. I will be the one who predicted the one in 1-15. That would be just so Steelers, given their recent history under Mike Tomlin. But what they need to do more than anything is find a second receiver who can get anything done. I knew Martavis Bryant getting suspended for the season would damage the Steelers. I honestly never dreamed it would damage the offense this much because Antonio Brown, I give the guy credit. His numbers are still pretty good, but he has to get open in crowds now. He's not getting a lot of yak because of that. Having to do that all the time is wearing him down. Sometimes he gets the boo-boo face and doesn't, work as hard in his route running. But that has really damaged the Steelers. Sammy Coates has not been the answer. Marcus Wheaton, Darius Hayward-Bay. That's where they need more help in particular. And, of course, for the tight end position, and maybe Ladarius Green comes back this week. And then they could play a little defense, too. The defense is so bad, Colin, I don't even say that it needs to play better because I know it can't.
Yeah. Mark Madden, good talking to you, bud. Great stuff.
Thank you, Colin. Let's do it again soon.
You bet. Man. He says what I say about Tomlin. Like this, the buddy system, the coach is your buddy. I've never bought into that. I like to like my bosses, you know what I mean? But bosses have to make big decisions and tough decisions. There are probably a lot, maybe in Hollywood you can do it that way. Maybe there are industries in tech you can do it that way, maybe. I don't know. I just don't think in sports buddy system works. I don't. I mean, he's hiring coaches, according to Mark Madden, just don't have any coaching experience. Former players. As I told you earlier, We have an exclusive tape of the conversation because I asked this week, what happens when Jerry Jones and Tony Romo, friends actually, like when's the phone call going to happen? When's the phone call going to happen that Tony Romo's not going to play? Because let's be honest here. Go to Lambeau, check win. In division Washington, check win. Big game Cincinnati, Sunday Night Football, check win. You go to Pittsburgh, check win, beat Big Ben. You're filling all the boxes out. Tony Romo's not going to play, and Jerry Jones just said this week, if I win a Super Bowl and Tony Romo's not part of it, that's going to hurt. Well, our staff works incredibly hard. And Cowboy quarterback Tony Romo has been medically cleared to play. That means Jerry Jones has a decision to make at quarterback. And through our incredible sourcing network, we have a tape only here. Jerry called Tony late last night, gave him the news, and here's the call between Jerry and Tony, exclusively in the Herd.
Obviously, in my role as general manager and owner, you have a decision. Dak was just outstanding. We're going with him.
I work hard to come back and get myself ready.
I can win with him. He's got it. He does have it.
We got to make a better decision.
Excuse me?
Poor. Bad decision.
You're an old...
That probably played way better on TV. Very, it's uncomfortable when you have to move on from old employees. It's very uncomfortable, Christine.
Why are you looking at me like that?
No,
you're side eye.
The youngest person on the. So I saw.
No, I'm not.
Aren't you the youngest person here?
No.
John, how old are you?
We're the same age.
Yeah, we're the same
I
age.
just look 10 years older.
Yeah. John's got a lot of facial.
There are people, our social media is younger than I am.
How's Ross doing? Lakers playing well, probably going crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, of all the fan bases in America, there is one that is bizarrely delusional, and we will confront them next. Our phone number, 877-757-HERD. Yeah, I saw Nick Saban came out. Nick Saban said, I don't even know, it was election day. I was talking about football, and people were like, whoa, man, the country's bigger than football. For Nick Saban, he's a grown-up. He's not on Twitter all day. He's worried about his job. You know, the thing with Colin Kaepernick, I heard this over and over. It was so dumb. It's that, well, you're telling me the issue he's talking about, police brutality, isn't bigger than football. Well, for a football player on Sunday, no. Football's bigger. That's your job. That's why here at Fox, I can't be a political activist when I walk in the door. This idea that, can you imagine? I mean, cancer's obviously more crucial than anything I do. Should I talk about cancer all the day at work? Because cancer, the idea that, well, Colin, there's issues out there that are bigger than blank. Of course there are, but you're a paid employee. When you walk through the door at work. Keep your political activism elsewhere is a very legitimate argument. Now, I think in professional sports, NBA, NFL, because of Facebook and social media, these are television shows. Like the NFL is not just a business, it's a TV show on 5 networks. There's optics to talk about. And I think you have to be careful about being too rigid with your employees. 75% of NBA players are African American. There's obviously, it's on television a lot. They're empowered superstars in America. They have a right to an opinion. But the NBA has said, no. When it comes to anthems, stand for it, or you'll be fined for it. In the NFL, they're like, you don't have to. So, you know, and but this stop with the, well, police brutality is bigger than football. Yes, people are dying with police brutality, obviously. But for a football player or a football coach, excuse me, sorry. But for a
salivating over the subject.
But for a football coach or a football player, when you walk in those doors, football's number one in your life. When I'm hiring people on this team, you can be an activist all day long, but when you walk in the door in the morning, head on, straightforward, focus, game on, give me topics. I'm not worried about you want to be an activist? Be an activist. But in that 3-hour space, when I'm preparing for my show, I better be the most important thing in your life. I've had to tell people before, don't call your wife during our prep. Don't call your buddy during our prep. Unless the house is burning down, prep's prep. Turn your phone off. So that's the most important thing when we show up for work in the morning. That doesn't mean that you can't be an activist. Doesn't mean it's the most important thing in the world.
Right.
But for Nick Saban, when he shows up for work, the most important thing is Alabama football. He's not worried about Trump and, Washoe County and who are they voting for, red state, blue state. He's worried about football. That's why he's a great coach. Discipline, focus in, concentrate. I've said this about Kaepernick. One of my real concerns about Kaepernick, he's not even committed to the weight. Watch him play skinny. Like, you have to be committed to your body before anything. Like, I can't come to work with a hangover every day. The first way to be committed to your job is to be committed physically to your job. I know a ton of NFL players. The minute they retire, they all lose 75 pounds. Every offensive lineman I've ever known. So what does that mean? That means they carry 75 pounds of weight they don't want to carry. They have no interest. It doesn't make them look good at night when they're with their wife. It doesn't feel good. It hurts the quality of their life, but they have committed to football physically first. I talked to Tony Gonzalez one time. He's like, I'm so glad that I don't have to wake up in the morning and rush to the gym. When you commit to a sport, you have to commit physically. Kaepernick doesn't have the needed weight. He went vegan. It's like, dude, you are 15 pounds too thin. You used to be yoked. That was part of your armor. It was part of your game. You haven't even committed to that. You got to commit physically. If you're going to play hockey or football it'd be like not training. You
can't just make the choice to go vegan and eat no meat and eat, nothing that will put meat on your bones.
Okay, ask yourself about this. If you were for a relay team at the Olympics and you just didn't commit to your body, you'd be letting down the team. What's the difference with football? Like, if you're a football player and you decide, I'm going to go vegan, and you lose 42 pounds as a left tackle, and now you're 259 pounds, you're not committing to your football team. Your body, in sports like football, where you are asked to be heavier. Every guy I know in football, how many football guys do I know over 30 years of doing this? They all shed weight. Every guy sheds like 10 to 15% body weight the minute they leave the sport. You're making a multitude of commitments in any job. You're making the time commitment, the financial commitment, a social commitment. I tell my wife there's going to be a handful of days family second in my life. Not many, but Super Bowl week. Take care of the fam. I'm not around. Super Bowl week, 1 week a year. I'm out of town. I can't rush back on Tuesday. House burns down, about the only exception. Seriously, it's just I have to commit a week a year. I can't go back with my family. If you run, whatever, HBO, Fox, Disney, give me days like, honey, we got a crisis. Stocks dropped 42 points. I got to go. Take care of the diapers. I got to go. It's the reality of it. Colin Kaepernick, what bothers me is he hasn't committed to his body, first of all. And second of all, stop with the whole police brutality is bigger than football. Of course it is. But when you walk through the doors of a workplace, that's the most important thing. Nick Saban cares about Alabama football. That's what he should care about.
If it's bigger than football, go vote.
Yeah, Kaepernick didn't vote.
I'll just leave that there, but go vote.
If you're going to make political statements and you have a presidential election.
And it's such a big deal.
All right. Good stuff today. Yeah, I hope you didn't miss our Conor McGregor interview. He fights Saturday in New York City. It's going to be gigantic. He is Charles Barkley. He is Pete Rose. He is Terry Bradshaw. He is, in this country, we like authentic. He is really, really authentic. I'll get to the most delusional fan base in sports. That's right around the corner. Final hour coming up. It's The Herd. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. I'm going to play about 4 or 5 minutes of Conor McGregor later in the hour. He came on earlier today. Huge fight Saturday night in New York City. It's going to be the biggest sporting event in Madison Square Garden in 20 years. Sorry, hockey fans. And that dreadful finals between the Knicks, Allen Houston, and the Spurs in that strike-shortened season doesn't count either. That was the worst final ever. This is going to be magnificent. There's a lot of people that don't get it. People live in a very insular tunnel. They don't understand sometimes things. We just saw this happen in the election. People are removed from certain lifestyles and certain lives, and they just don't see things coming. And this is not a sport. The UFC for the last 10 years has been a movement. And I have kids. And do you know what my kids asked me about this morning when they text me? How was Conor McGregor on the show? They never asked me that about other really good guests. A lot of times we live in these little tubes, and we can't believe people don't think like we do. I have been saying this for 5 years about the UFC. This thing's coming. Same thing with soccer. It's coming. You don't want to pay attention to it, but it's coming. And it's going to hit New York City Friday, and these are going to be the most expensive tickets in a long time for sports in New York in that arena. It is a real thing. It's growing like crazy. I know the people that bought it for $2 million and sold it for $4 billion. And I have watched this thing. I have been arguing about soccer to old grumpy guys forever. Nobody cares about soccer. Have you seen the World Cup ratings? By the way, I look at ratings. Soccer ratings are up 15%. This network and my other network. Up 15%. Not a lot of leagues' ratings are up 15%. MLS is. World Cup, FIFA, video game sales, up. Merchandise sales, up. Like soccer and UFC. A lot of people just can't. Well, I didn't grow up with it. Well, what do your kids watch? Your kids care. This Conor McGregor fight is going to be magnificent, and we'll later in the hour, he was on our show, not doing a lot of shows, and they've got that press conference right after our show today. You want to watch when our show ends. You want to be around a television set right after our show on this network. Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor have their press conference, and this sport, you can tell how good a business is by what it does to its rival businesses. It's killed boxing. Boxing's inactive. Like, where is boxing? I mean, they're still hauling out Manny Pacquiao. He was past his prime 6 years ago. What's happened to wrestling? They're still bringing out The Undertaker. Good God, The Undertaker's like 55 years old. Is Ric Flair fighting this weekend? Triple H? John Cena's the only star left, and he fights irregularly. Like, look at what UFC has done to wrestling, and it's done to boxing. I mean, wrestling can't figure out how to create stars. They tried to. None of them stuck. Like, this sport not only creates Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey. So it's amazing to me how often people they live in a cylinder and they just can't admit, holy moly, something's growing. I don't have to love something to understand it. I said this about Trump 6 months ago. He's not a candidate. He's a movement. At least respect the movement. I mean, he's not a candidate. Romney was a candidate. Hillary was a candidate. Obama and Trump were movements. You got to respect stuff if you don't agree with it. Like, this UFC thing is real. New York is going to be incredible on Saturday night. I mean, I cannot wait for the video. I cannot wait for the fight. I can't wait for the weigh-in. It's going to be nuts. This sport is growing, and people say, you just like it now because you work at Fox. Go read my first book. I said it then. In the last 25 years, you know how many sports I've been told are going to grow? Hockey's not going to grow. Hockey is what it is. Hockey is not going to grow wildly. It's a very exclusive sport. If you don't skate, if you're not near a rink, you don't play it. How many kids in the Sun Belt wake up wanting to be NHL stars? Baseball's growth. It's part of the fabric of our country, but the pace is slow. It turns off a lot of young kids. Soccer and UFC, man, they're growing like 15% a year. Just be patient. Let it bake. You're going to wake up in 10 years, and this is going to be bigger than a lot of stuff. And this will be huge Friday. This will be big. It's still not on a big fight as big as boxing, but it has absolutely captured our attention. When's the last time a talk radio host of any magnitude talked about boxing? Outside of Mayweather-Pacquiao? Don't anymore. Forget this show. Go to the other ones. They'll talk about this. This will be a topic Monday. So of all the fan bases in America, I think most fan bases are mostly realistic. I mean, fans are fans, right? Fan short for fanatic. I mean, like, people in Oklahoma City know, wow, we're not going to be as good without Durant. They're smart enough. They can figure that out. Now, people in Golden State may think we're going to win 10 straight titles, but we know they're going to be good. But most fan bases I think, are remotely in line with what they are. People in Jacksonville don't think they're New England. Of all the fan bases, though, I think Notre Dame's just the most delusional. I mean, how many coaches do you need to see struggle to realize maybe it's harder to win there? I saw yesterday, Stuart Mandel, FoxSports.com, had an article. And somebody wrote in and he said, listen, I'm an alum and I'm overly invested. We have 0 major bowl wins, blowout losses in 2 appearances. You know why Notre Dame has bowl losses? Because Notre Dame gets into bowls they don't deserve to be in. Against Alabama, against Ohio State, and they get smoked. Because everybody knows if you invite Notre Dame, you get a good TV rating, and their fans come from across the country and they fill your stadium, you're getting into better bowls than you deserve to get into. But it's amazing. Look at what Harbaugh's done at Michigan, right? The average score for a Michigan game, he's only in year 2. The average score this year of Michigan games is 48-10. That's just dismantling people. That's having a way more NFL bodies than they do. Even the year Notre Dame went undefeated, the average score that year, they went undefeated, then lost to Alabama. The average score that year was 26-13. That's coaching. That's winning close. That's out scheming. That's having some good players. Just say it out loud with Notre Dame. Academics, isolated, cold weather, religious overtones. Hard. It's a hard place socially. It's a hard place. It's not cool like Ann Arbor. It's not a city like Columbus. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's academic. It's religious. It's hard to get in. Hard to stay in. Notre Dame doesn't have a single elite NFL cornerback. They don't have a single elite NFL pass rusher. They don't have a single elite NFL running back. They don't have a single elite NFL quarterback. They don't have a single elite NFL linebacker. Their best player in the NFL is a guard. The most unathletic position in the league, Zach Martin, Dallas Cowboys. I got nothing against Notre Dame. But if you put them in the SEC, you put them in the Big Ten, they're a 4 or 5 loss team. And you're banging on Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly has proven he's got the most career wins of any active FBS head coach. We know he is a good coach. It's been established. How many coaches does Notre Dame have to run through and figure out maybe it is a little tougher here? I've said this. People over 50 think Notre Dame's a great job. And I'm over 50, so people think, oh, God, it's a great job. You know what a great job is? Great weather, loose academics, a lot of pretty girls on campus, football tradition. Stop bragging about we can get on TV. Boise State gets on TV. Anybody can get on TV. I want Urban Meyer, years ago, I've told you this story before, was offered Notre Dame in Florida. And do you know what Lou Holtz told him? Take Florida. Easier to get great athletes into school. Lou Holtz got a call from Urban Meyer because Urban was an assistant under Lou Holtz. And this is a real story. And he Lou Holtz said, well, you're going to win more games at Florida. What defines a great college football job? I can get the great athletes in. I live in an area with a lot of great high school athletes geographically within 25 minutes of my school. Alabama, LSU, USC, Miami, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, everybody's upset now. Got to get Brian Kelly out. Ugh. You're going to do what the Niners did. You're going to get rid of Jim Harbaugh, wake up and have tracksuit football coach guy running your program. I got news for you. The percentage of coaches who are great is very, very low. About 1% of football coaches are great. Maybe you get 10% are very good, and 15 to 20 are good. Brian Kelly's somewhere between good to very good. I would say very good football coach. Now, he hasn't had a great year. I'll grant you that. But he faces obstacles LSU's coach doesn't, Alabama's coach doesn't, USC's coach doesn't. I mean, David Shaw at Stanford has obstacles that USC doesn't. David Shaw at Stanford has obstacles that Ohio State doesn't. Some of these jobs are harder. Stanford's a harder job. Stanford is a harder job than USC. It's very hard for Stanford to get 85 scholarship players that can qualify for that school. It's rigorous. I mean, look how big my brain is. I couldn't get into Stanford. You could have. You were a 4-point high school student.
4.3.
Oh, my God.
I just want to make that clear.
4.3?
4.3.
That's outrageously smart.
Yeah, when you take AP classes in high school, you can get a 4.3.
You were boring.
No, I was actually like in every club. I was a cheerleader. I was in the choir. I was in the student council. I was the activities chair. I was not boring. Musicals.
Oh, musicals. Good times.
It was a great time.
Tell you what club I was in, John? Football club.
Football club?
Basketball club.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say there, John?
Club that gets high behind the gym.
Outrageously no. 90% of NFL fans, 90% are on the Cowboys this weekend. That's a lot. 80% is like the threshold where sharps and wise guys. If 80% of people, the public is on a team, like 80%, sharps generally go the other way. 90% of money is on the Dallas Cowboys getting 2.5 this weekend.
And Vegas still says the Steelers?
Well, we'll see what Vegas says. I have my wise guys thing with RJ Bell on Saturday morning.
Oh, you don't want to give it away?
Yeah, well, I haven't interviewed him yet, but we'll see.
Okay.
I think the line hasn't changed. It is what it is.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that's the game of the week. Now, I think New England's, there's 2 games this week I want to watch. Really want to watch. New England, Seattle is very, very good. I think Seattle is going to account for itself very well. I'd take New England. But I think Seattle, I don't think New England's defense is nearly as good as Belichick and his staff thought it was going to be. That's why they moved Jamie Collins. They're not performing very well. They're giving up chunk plays. They're not as dominant in the red zone. New England's defense has been really hit and miss. And it was better last year. It's receded. It's not as good. And the other thing is Seattle defensively doesn't look like most teams. They're fast. They're sideline to sideline. They're long, and they're getting now a real pass rush. Their offense is the issue. So I think it's going to be a really competitive game. Pete Carroll's teams, even back to college, have always played well in these games. Pete Carroll's teams, college and pro, they have their bad Sundays. You put them on Sunday Night Football. You put them on Monday Night Football. You put them on Thursday Night Football. You put them in a big spot, the big game of the week, Seattle always rises to the occasion. Always. That's Pete's thing. Now, Dallas-Pittsburgh, Dallas is the better team. But again, you're talking about Big Ben is unbelievable at home, and Dak Prescott is a rookie on the road. And I think it'll be interesting. I saw this. James Harden said, and by the way, he's not the first guy to say this. James Harden of the Houston Rockets said, I'm the best player in the NBA. Somebody asked him. He goes, I'm the best player in the NBA. And he is having a good year. He's averaging 31 and 13 assists. But, it's interesting because LeBron the other day was asked about being one of the top 10 scorers, and LeBron's like, I'm not really into points. I like LeBron's personality better than James Harden's personality. James Harden hasn't done anything, and he's like, I'm the best player in the NBA. And then a writer at my former employer came out and said, James Harden making his case as the NBA's best player. Are you high? Stop it. Okay, who is the coach of Houston right now with James Harden? Mike D'Antoni. Okay, Mike D'Antoni, the Chip Kelly of NBA coaches. When Mike D'Antoni was in New York, Jeremy Lin as his point guard became a household name. Forget the fact that Steve Nash became the MVP of the league. Jeremy Lin averaged 27 points a game for a 6-game stretch in New York. Jeremy Lin, who's been on 6 teams, who really, on a really good team, would be like the 8th best player. Seriously. On a really good team, he's playing 13 minutes a night. He's one of those guards that comes in at the 11-minute mark of the first quarter, plays for 4.5 minutes, and then gives it back to the starting guard. And he does that in the second half. but he's never in a game late if it matters. I mean, nothing against Jeremy Lin, but with Mike D'Antoni, he became a household name in America. It's been established. James Harden is a turnover machine that doesn't play defense. He's a stat monster. 8 years in the NBA as a starter, 1 playoff series. 1 year. 1 year of his career as a starter, he has won a playoff series. He won 2 in 1 year. In 1 year, he won 2 playoff series. So he's had 1 run, and that's it? Best player in the league? I mean, sometimes the media, the NBA media, it really segues into fanboyism. He's not the best player in the league. You know who had 34 points last night and played great defense? Same game, Kawhi Leonard. By the way, Westbrook and James Harden, in the media, the NBA media just falls all over him. They're tied for the NBA lead in turnovers by a ton. Because their coach now has given Westbrook and Harden free reign. Oh, yeah. James Harden's amazing. I went to that box score last night for the amazing James Harden with 24 points. The amazing James Harden with the 15 assists. Guess how many turnovers he had last night, Christine?
How many?
8. 8 turnovers and played no defense. Come on. I mean, how long does the NBA media... Nobody's arguing he is a tremendous offensive player. Kawhi Leonard in that same game is a significantly better basketball player, especially on, the end of the floor that often decides championships, the defensive end of the floor. I didn't even look up Kawhi Leonard's stats last night. Let's see. 7 rebounds. 2 turnovers, not 8. Jeez, people.
Do you know what I was thinking? Like we killed LeBron, or a lot of people did, when he said he was the best player in the world.
LeBron is.
Right. But James Harden, I believe, truly thinks he is too. It must be the coolest feeling to really believe that when you say it. I am the best player in the world.
I think there's a medical term. It's like delusion.
Delusion. But for LeBron, that's not delusion.
No, for LeBron, it's a reality. And by the way, again, confidence is one thing, but it's I don't even blame the player. Come on, media.
Right.
Come on, media.
They're buying into it.
God, I mean, it's been established. He didn't play on the other end. It's like this Carmelo Anthony thing I've been watching for 10 years. Pay attention. Heard brought to you by TrueCar. Ready to buy a new one? Download their app. Configure the new car you want. See what others paid for it. Lock in guaranteed savings. Time, money, save both. Download the TrueCar app today. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
A lot of people were questioning Andrew Bogut's durability when he was hurt during the finals last season, and he was pretty upset about it because there were anonymous sources apparently talking about him not being durable. And one of the things he said was, I don't buy into the sources thing. I don't buy into all that blank, because this league is so two-faced and everybody is so fake. The same people who make those comments will see me tomorrow and shake my hand and ask how my family is. So obviously very, very angry about that. And some people were questioning whether he was talking about the Warriors who traded him away from the team. But now Andrew Bogut is clarifying.
Names will quote, don't quote it. But I know for a fact that people in this league will give those anonymous sources. Could be people that are on your staff. And they're going to look you in the eye and act like you're your best friends and how's your family, how's your kids, everything good. It was more related to that. That's just the business that we're in. There's so much money involved. There's so much at stake. It's disappointing, but I expect that. I'll just call it as I see it. You can't change it. It's always going to be like that. But it's just, just put your name to it.
That's always been a tough thing for me too, right? Because the job as a journalist is to get those anonymous sources to say things so you can report on it. But they are often talking negatively about maybe one of their teammates, and then the next day they go act like they're best friends.
Listen, anonymous sources are valuable because...
In journalism.
Of course they are. I always laugh when I hear this. Well, you shouldn't use anonymous sources. Well, presidents, if a president was corrupt, who's going to go on the record criticizing a president if you're in his cabinet? Mm-hmm. You need anonymous sources because some people, like whistleblowers.
Yeah.
There's death threats. If you were at Enron, to bring down Enron, you needed anonymous sourcing. Because, you would have been... Enron was so hot, the stock price was so high, nobody wanted to disrupt the stock price. Everybody was getting rich. So you needed anonymous sourcing to uncover a complete scam. WorldCom was the same thing.
I get the frustration of the players, though. I once knew of a situation where there was one player trying to get his teammate traded and was using the media as a way to get that out.
Oh, I've been used, yeah.
Yeah, and I get it. You don't know who to trust when all of a sudden reports are coming out about you, and you know that it's probably from the inside. That's got to create a lot of discourse within the locker room.
You know what? I have twice in my career broken a big story, like a big story, beaten the local papers. And in both instances, I used my favorite trick. Find the disgruntled employee.
That's all you have to do.
And in both instances, a disgruntled employee. I broke the Lane Kiffin to USC story, and I broke the Bob Witz that's going to get fired in Portland. And there was a lot of media on it in the country. It's amazing when you find the disgruntled employee, a lot of talk.
But how do you feel about that?
That's my job. My job is to get information. I don't feel guilty for it at all. I mean, I just met somebody the other day that was an FBI agent.
Cool.
Yeah, and I met this person, and we sat there and engaged for like 10 minutes, and it's amazing the world this person lives in this city I live in, and what this person does, and her life is very covert. Oh, I mean, wow. I'm just sitting there like, wow. Her life's a series of anonymous sources.
That's Homeland? It sounds like Homeland.
Come on. A lot of people have to deal with that.
Harrison Barnes made his return to Golden State yesterday. The Mavericks played the Warriors, and it was the first time that he went back since he was a restricted free agent and went to the Mavericks because obviously Golden State needed to make some room for Kevin Durant. And he was talking about the experience for him and how disappointing it was. And he said he knew that the writing was on the wall once the Warriors lost in the finals to the Cavs. He said, I think we knew that they were going to blow it up if we lost the series. I can't say I was surprised. It wasn't easy to leave the franchise, the only franchise I've ever known, but it is a big switch. It's either 2 minutes away from planning a parade or thank you for your services. I think he had 25 points last night. He's with the Mavericks. Obviously not as good of a team, but Texas is a nice place for money.
I never had a
Mark
problem.
Cuban?
I never had a problem with Harrison leaving because he was offered a ton of money. And
it wasn't his choice, really.
Yeah, but he's a very talented guy. It wasn't, and I do believe that if they get one or two more players, they'll be a very interesting team. And I think, I understand if you're the fifth option on a team.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get saying, it's one thing if you're the second option or third option. I wouldn't leave if I was Klay Thompson. I wouldn't leave if I'm Curry. But if I was talented, Harrison Barnes was the number one high school player in the country. He was a very good college player. And then he comes to the NBA, and he's a fifth option. At times.
Yeah, I think he would have stayed with the Warriors, obviously, if they had the space and the money for him. But obviously, Kevin Durant coming in kind of forced him out.
Yeah, changed
But
everything.
I think he's got a good place to go, and he's such a good, mature kid. I think he'll be.
I always said
fine.
I thought the Lakers should have pursued him.
Yeah,
that was the one thing with the Lakers. I said to have a smart, quality guy. John, you watched him every game. He plays defense, right?
Yeah, he's super athletic and long, and he was able to, when they went to that small lineup, he was able to play the 4 with Draymond Green playing 5, which is huge. So he has some versatility.
I would love to have Harrison Barnes on my team. I don't necessarily want to make him a max player.
Oh, he was.
But I would struggle with that. But I thought the Lakers, I would have taken the Mozgov and the Luol Deng money both and given it to Harrison Barnes.
Agreed.
And they didn't.
And it would have made sense because Luke Walton would have been his coach, and they got along well with the Warriors. And speaking of Luke Walton, there is more stuff coming out now about how much the Lakers appreciate him as their coach. There's a situation he was taking on each player one-on-one in drills, and no one could even score on him until Julius Randle's second attempt. They are saying things like they'll run through walls for him. They don't want to disappoint him. And that he's a really cool guy that people can relate to. So now that it looks like the Lakers are having fun, you can see when you watch them. They're winning here and there. Yeah. They're having a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe it will start to be a place where big-name free agents do want to come play because the Kobe cloud is gone.
Just
the bad
be patient.
Coaching cloud's gone.
Listen. Minnesota's got great young players. Not even good young players. Minnesota's good young players are way better than the Lakers' good young players. What's Minnesota's record right now? It's hard.
It is.
This league is Minnesota's roster, and now they have Tibbs. And
yeah, but Minnesota's not L.A.
No, but Minnesota's got Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Levine. Yeah. Now they have Andrew Bogut. They have real players. Not what's the big guy I'm thinking of? The other one. I'm spacing it. I'm looking at their.
No, but the point is.
Chris Dunn. My bad. They have the point guard Chris Dunn, who I like
Andrew,
at the time.
Whichever.
Yeah, I know. They have Chris. So I mean, Minnesota's roster and the coach are like, oh, they're gonna win a bunch of games. It's hard in this league.
Yeah, it is.
So Laker fans, you're going 29 games.
Hey, 29 is up from what Vegas thought.
That's right. That 29 games. Next year's 39. So you're still 2 years away from, I think, being like even viable at the top of the West.
It's all right. They're having a good time in their upward trend.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Yeah. I haven't watched a ton of T-Wolves games. Is Chris Dunn now playing more? How's he doing? He's the rookie out of Providence I liked. Nice play. I only see highlights right now at this point in the season. Unless it's the Warriors. If it's the Warriors and the Cavs, I'll watch the game. But right now I just watch it.
The Warriors playing the Cavs? Or
no, each separately. I'll go to NBA TV, NBA.com, and I'll watch the highlights.
Okay.
So, but it's. I think fans just have to be patient. If Laker fans are patient, they'll be fine. In New York City, Friday night is going to be the most action and the most energy in New York. And I know a lot of people over 45 just don't buy into this UFC thing. They don't get it. It is the hottest ticket. I heard Mike Francesa talking about this about a month ago. It's the hottest ticket in New York City. And you're going to see what this UFC thing's about. It is. I took my wife to it. It's incredible. And it's hard to explain for people who grew up with boxing and they think it's too violent. But Saturday, you're going to get Conor McGregor and Eddie Alvarez, and it's going to be nasty. And I had Conor McGregor on. Just going to play a couple minutes of this. He is the rock star. UFC has destroyed boxing largely and has made even wrestling look small and desperate. Undertaker, really? Really? UFC creates stars. McGregor's their first or second biggest star. And I asked him earlier, I said, dude, you're 28. You could do other things. You've got the money. Like, how much longer does this thing go?
You never know as far as competitive fighting goes, but I'm going to last a lifetime. Let me tell you that. I'm going nowhere fast anytime soon. So, but as far as competitive fighting, who knows? It's a dangerous business. It is a crazy business. I'm enjoying the ride right now. I'm fresh. I'm in my prime.
How surprised were you, Conor McGregor on the line, when he called you the least intimidating fighter he's ever fought?
Yeah, he's got to say something. But he's got to say something to hype himself up. But in reality, all they do is talk about me. All they do is worry about me. His coach has been planning to fight me since way back. So he can say what he wants. But when we came face to face, When we came face to face originally, he stood on his tippy toes. He had a weird reaction. Started making these funny faces, tilting his head side to side. It was a you can't hide these reactions. In that moment, in that pressure moment, when the fans and everyone's there, you cannot fake these moments. You can't hide them. And between me and him, we could see what's happening. It's a guy that doesn't know what's happening. He's panicking in there, and he's trying to convince himself this is not what this is, but it is what it is. And on Saturday night, he will find that out.
Madison Square Garden, and I used to live in the East Coast, is just a remarkable venue. And New York, there's so much energy in this city. And, Conor, you are now, if you count boxing and UFC, you are a star in America. Do you sense it? Do you like it? Are you oblivious? Like, how does that land for you?
It feels good to come over this side of the pond. I'm not from here, but right. I certainly feel like I run here. I walk outside and there's fans, and they must be behind they're kept behind barricades to keep them. It's absolutely crazy out here at the moment. So I'm just embracing it. I'm grateful for it. And Saturday night, I will go and prove my worth here and put on a great show for my fans that are showing me the love out here for a kid that's not from here. Like I said, I'm from Dublin, Ireland. And to come over here in these places and be made feel like a king out here it's a great feeling and an inspiring and motivating feeling.
Dana White said you're going to become the first fighter potentially to hold two belts simultaneously. And Dana White has said, listen, we got to take one from you. Does it? I mean, what is your relationship? Because you and Dana are both really business people. What's your relationship today with Dana?
I love Dana. I've all the time in the world for Dana. Him and Lorenzo, they helped mentor me in this game. And As far as that decision, I mean, they're talking of stripping me before I even get it. I was like, it's strange to me. I mean, I'm the reason. I'm the reason. I'm the reason they're all chilling right now. I'm the reason the company was sold for 4.2 billion, and I continue to show up. I continue to fight. I continue to break all these records and bring the sport to that next level. Because no other fighter is on that next level. And then they're talking about stripping the belt before I even get it. Look, it is what it is. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But right now, I'm focused on the moment. This is historic. No one's going to take this moment away. They're trying to take it away from me before I even got it. But hey, this is the business we're in. It's a cruel, crazy business. But I'm going to go and cement my name in history.
Finally, press conference at 3 Eastern today after our show. And I used to cover Mike Tyson, and about 24 to 48 hours before a fight, Mike Tyson's personality changed. When do you get to that moment before the fight when Conor, you don't even want people around you?
That's just fear. That's just another form of fear, you know. I see that sometimes, like, people take this phone away from me. I'm gonna not be in contact with anyone the day before the fight. Man, I could be on the phone walking into the octagon. It's another day for me. It's another day for me, and that's the way I treat it. So I understand how I prepare to make the walk. I understand, you know, I do my warm-up routines and I keep everything correct. I loosen out the body. But as far as keeping people away from me, that's just like a superstition. And to me, superstition is simply another word for fear. So I don't have that. I don't need a pair of lucky jocks. And if I don't have them jocks, then I'm and it's over. You know, and that's all that is. That's ridiculous to me. So it's just another day for me doing what I do, whooping ass and looking good.
Awesome. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez. Watch the fight, folks. Thank you, Conor.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
It was intense. Intense. I'm also fired up this weekend. There's one college football game I think is going to be incredible this weekend. A lot of blowouts in college football this weekend. USC, Washington. I know I'm a Pac-12 homer, though. I cannot wait to watch that game. I have thoughts on that coming up. Tomorrow we're loaded. Derek Carr of the Raiders, Blazing 5. Don't forget, after our show, this is like in 6-7 minutes, the McGregor-Alvarez presser. Don't go anywhere. So I don't really break down the games, but I'm going to break down the game. Okay, this is going to be really nerdy for me because I generally don't do this, but I grew up in Seattle and I love Washington. And then I became a USC homer. That's what everybody thinks. So I know Washington USC personnel very, very well. It's the game of the weekend in college football. And my feeling is Chris Peterson's a terrific coach. USC has more NFL bodies. And Washington is going to take a lead because Chris Peterson has had the lead in every football game he's coached in the last decade, 85% of the time. And it's going to get really loud. But Washington's defense, which was great early, you can run on Washington. They lost one of their better defensive players, Joe Mathis. And you can run on Washington. And USC has a stable of very clever running backs, and they get a push up front. And USC's got a quarterback, Sam Darnold, who is the most talented kid playing that position at USC since Carson Palmer. I like Washington in this game because I think they're better coached, they're at home, and they're more efficient. And there's a big difference between winning and being well coached. I still have questions. USC lost 3 of its first 4, but has won 5 straight. And they did beat Colorado, and that is something. But I still have questions whether or not USC is particularly well coached. I think their special teams coach, John Baxter, has done a pretty good job and been very clever, and that unit's pretty conscientious. But I think Chris Peterson is one of the elite coaches in the country. Now, my feeling is I'm from the Northwest. Washington, I thought with Chris Peterson, would win 10 games a year. They are better than I thought earlier than I thought. Just like Michigan with Harbaugh is better than I thought earlier than I thought. I generally think you got to give a guy to the middle of his second year, third year, fourth year. Washington returns virtually every player of note next year. Every single player of note on offense, and probably their 10 best defensive players. They are going to be a top 5 team next year. I think here's the key. If Washington, let's say this, if USC wins, because remember, USC against Paul Chryst in Wisconsin lost, David Shaw lost. Nick Saban lost. Whittingham lost. They've lost to all the good coaches. Chris Peterson's one of those coaches. So I think USC is going to beat Notre Dame, and I think USC is going to beat UCLA. This is the game for USC. If Clay Helton can go to Seattle and not only beat a good team, but a really well-coached team, then if you're a USC fan, it's okay. We're gonna be okay. But to be a great program, you gotta beat the great coaches. You gotta beat the great coaches. Right now, Clay Helton, he's beaten some decent teams, never beaten a great coach. Devastated by, lost twice to David Shaw, crushed by Saban, lost to Paul Chris, lost to Whittingham. Okay, now's the time. So this game to me says a ton about USC's football future with Clay Helton. If they go up there and lose a competitive game and it's 27-23, you can feel very good. Because, by the way, outside of Alabama, I'm not sure anybody else in the country, maybe Michigan could go to Seattle this year and win. Alabama would and Michigan would. And Ohio State would be close. But I don't expect USC to win. I don't think anybody in the country, not named Alabama and Michigan, could go into that stadium and win. I think Clemson would lose. Be close, but Clemson would lose. But if it can be close and competitive, the line opened at about 7.5. It's moved up to 9. So Vegas is saying, we think it's going to be a close football game. We think it's going to be a competitive football game. For USC fans that live in my neighborhood, virtually my entire neighborhood is USC fans, I want to see USC be competitive. I think the Pac-12 is a better conference when USC is a good team. They don't have to be the best team. They got to be one of the two best. It can be Stanford USC, Washington USC. USC needs to be near the top. It's a football program. It's got a national brand. They can recruit anywhere. They've got to be in the top 2 of the conference to really be respected nationally. As a kid, when I grew up, it was USC and Washington and UCLA. It was Terry Donahue and the Bruins. It was Don James in Washington. And it was USC, and they had a variety of coaches. So this is a really monumental game, in my opinion, for USC, not for Washington. I mean, Washington could lose this game. Washington brings back everybody. We know Chris Peterson's a good coach. They got all the momentum in the world. Brand new stadium, coaching staff, momentum, players. Washington's fine. This is about USC. Where are they? Beating Colorado's one thing. Beating Cal's one thing. Beating Mark Helfrich in Oregon, that's one thing. Beating Utah State's one thing. Whole different ballgame. Beating Arizona's one thing. This is your view of USC. 5 in a row. You got the quarterback of the future. You go up there and get blown out. Lynn Swann has got to fly home and think, what's my future? Because we can't compete with the good coaches. As you know, college football is about, I'm just throwing a number up, about 75% coaching. It's about 75% coaching. Brady Hoke, Jim Harbaugh, same guys first year, different team. Okay, John, that was my nerdiness. Are you okay with that? That was sort of nerd city.
Very well said.
I don't break down games. I'm not a break down the game guy. I think it's bad radio. But right there, I just broke down the game. That was sponsored by nobody in particular. Okay, stick around. We're going to have the McGregor-Alvarez presser on FS1. Tomorrow, Blazing 5, Derek Carr, Raider quarterback Mike Lombardi. Oh, my buddy Dave Wannstedt. He tells great stories. Mm-hmm. He tells unbelievable stories. And
you're eating your sandwich already.
What's that, John?
He had a story you teased last time that he had to check if he could tell.
Yes, he's got a story. Dave,
has that been cleared?
I'll find out.
You should text him now.
And now, look, this is what I'm going to have for lunch. This is really fascinating.
Is that tuna?
This tuna sandwich has no chance.
4 pounds of mustard on there.
Yeah. It's just mustard and a fish.
What's the red stuff in there?
Just like to throw a little curveball in there.
No.
All right, we will Speak for Yourself is on later. We will see you tomorrow. Stick around. McGregor-Alvarez presser next on FS1.